Hi, I'm Matt from Production Audio Video Technology, and in this video we're continuing on from our last video on room acoustics, and here we're discussing loudspeaker and microphone selection and placement for conference rooms. So in a previous video on conference room microphones, we discussed the difference between 3 different microphone types. Here we're going to discuss how microphones and loudspeakers can be used to best effect for your conference room by working through a couple of example scenarios. In small spaces, where people may be seated all around a table, a common approach is to place a single microphone in the center of the table. To pick up everyone equally, an omnidirectional microphone should be used. That means it picks up sound equally from all directions around it. The downside is that an omnidirectional microphone has no way to discriminate between wanted speech sounds and room noise and reflections. So, this method will suffer from increased room noise and reflections, which will make participants sound more distant. A better approach is to use multiple directional microphones spaced around the table. Commonly, 3 cardioid directional microphones are used, each one covering an arc of 120 degrees to give a notional 360 degrees coverage. The benefit of this method is that each microphone is only sensitive to sounds in front of it, so when one person is speaking, the other 2 microphones that would otherwise pick up unwanted noise can be switched off. Automatic switching on and off of microphones in response to participant speech is a common feature of an auto mixer, which is a common feature inside most digital signal processors or DSPs. In larger rooms with more than 6 or so participants, the use of multiple microphones to pick up everyone is more or less mandatory. In an ideal world, every participant would be given their own microphone located in close proximity and therefore achieving the best performance in terms of capturing wanted speech and rejecting unwanted sound. For various practical reasons though, we often end up sharing one mic between 2, 3 or perhaps even more participants. In these cases, you should place microphones so that they are as close as possible to equidistant to all participants. Otherwise, you'll end up with a result that sounds great for me, but isn't so great for the guy sitting next to me. With the mic further away, although you'll pick up more of the room noise and reflections, you'll pick up each participant with a similar audio quality. When it comes to choosing loudspeakers for our conference spaces, we're often guided by our experience with home hi-fi. This is fine for playback-only applications, but in conferencing, we're creating a real-time, two-way audio link between remote spaces. So that means if sound from our loudspeaker makes it into our microphone, we end up sending audio back to where it originated from. This creates an echo effect for the far end. One of the key features of DSPs used for audio conferencing is acoustic echo cancellation, or AEC, which is an electronic process that's designed to cancel out this return audio. However, the AEC process is not perfect, so if your return audio is too loud at the microphone, the AEC process can fail. Your goal therefore with loudspeaker selection and placement is to deliver enough sound to participants' ears whilst trying to minimize how much sound gets delivered onto the conference room microphones. And just like microphones, loudspeakers have directional characteristics, so we can select speakers that have good directional control and place them judiciously in order to minimize that spill onto microphones. So let's consider a couple of examples. Flush ceiling speakers are most often seen in large, distributed installations in places like shopping centres, where the aim of the system is to cover as much area with as few loudspeakers as possible. For this reason, the coverage pattern of most ceiling loudspeakers is quite wide. You can think of them like a shower of sound, where the angle of the cone the shower makes determines the coverage. 120 to 150 degrees is common for 4 to 6 inch types. When used in a conference scenario, ceiling loudspeakers are often placed down the center of a boardroom table with the intention of covering participants on both sides of the table with only one speaker. From this position though, the speakers will also deliver a lot of energy to the table microphones, which isn't ideal. Even worse, if we instead use ceiling microphones, we've created a scenario where the microphones are much closer to the loudspeakers than the participants, with the net result that the return level into the mics will be high and AEC may fail. A better approach is to place the ceiling loudspeakers outside the table, behind the seated participants. This way, the loudspeakers are closer to the participants than to the microphones, so for the same level to the participants' ears, we're delivering far less onto the microphones. Various types of loudspeakers can be used in a front-of-house system. For example, the inbuilt speakers on a flat panel display, or a pair of bookshelf-type speakers positioned either side of a projection screen. These types of speakers, though, typically don't have very good directional control due to their small physical size. Put very simply, the physics of sound reproduction dictates that we need to have speakers of a fairly large size to achieve directional control down to usable frequencies. So, large speakers doesn't necessarily mean loud, it just means greater directional control. But directional control isn't actually our chief concern in this example. What we're looking at here is evenness of coverage from front to back of the room. We all know that sounds get quieter as we move away from the source. So in our front of house speaker scenario, the person at the back of the room is going to receive a lower level than the person at the front. Naturally, we'll make our system loud enough so that the person at the back can still hear adequately, meaning the level at the front may be far more than necessary. Considering now the microphones in this system, the ones at the front of the room will receive a high level of return audio, potentially causing AEC to fail. An improvement on this scenario is to add a secondary set of speakers partway down the length of the room to provide level to the participants at the back. Because the secondary speakers are closer, they can be operated at a lower level and still achieve the same result. The main speakers can also be reduced in level, as now they only have to cover the front half of the room. By understanding a little bit about how microphones and loudspeakers work, you can use common sense to determine which conferencing approaches are appropriate and which ones aren't. Of course, we haven't covered everything in this video though, and there's always more to the story. So if you have any questions, please feel free to contact us at our website, pavt.com.au.